Welcome, Kat. I'm really excited to have you here today to talk all about spirit babies. I have to be honest, I listened to your podcast episode about spirit babies and I got off of it and I immediately emailed you. I was like, we have to have this conversation. I have more questions. I think my audience would love to hear about this. So to dive right in, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and your background and maybe what are spirit babies?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. By the way, I'm super honored that you wanted to. I love being able to go on twice to someone's podcast because it means obviously something resonated. So thanks for having me back on. I
Yes, of
really
course.
appreciate you trusting me and trusting whatever comes out of my mouth these days. But yeah, so my name is Kat. I'm a family constellation therapy facilitator, very trauma informed. I've studied a lot of Dr. Gabor Mate's work. I find myself to work best with ancestral healing, with having one foot in the physical, one foot in the spiritual. So I can work as an intuitive medium. I do work very intuitively, whether it's directly or not. It's kind of everything. I believe we're all kind of intuiting the work that we do to some extent. I just happen to use mine in a bit of a more mediumship way at times. That comes in really handy with the spirit baby stuff. And then one foot in the physical, like I said, being trauma informed, understanding human development, understanding things like connection and attachment theory, and really understanding what it means to get our needs met as human beings. And then where does the spiritual fit into that whole aspect? And to answer your question about spirit babies, the way that I know them to be is that they are the spirits of the babies that we will potentially bring to this earth one day, that will come through us. However, spirit babies are interesting. What I've learned and what I've experienced is that not all of them are supposed to manifest into the physical as our babies. Some of them manifest as businesses, as ideas. You can often look at spirit babies sometimes as guides. They're kind of guiding us and nudging us to help us bring something into creation. They can be the inspiration for those things as well. For me personally, I'll just share something about my own experience with spirit babies to kind of help the listener understand a little bit more about what I mean, that they don't always come into the physical manifestation. I had a reading with a woman that I trust dearly with my life. She's actually a good friend of mine, Julie Grant. She does family constellation therapy and shamanism journeying work. And she did a journey for me and she said, you have 3 babies. And, I'm 35 and I'm just getting married and we'll probably try to start having a family later this year. And I was like, I don't have time or energy for 3 babies. I'm 35. And she was like, that's okay. If you have the first 2, the third one will come in as a grandson. And I was like, okay, cool. Like that, if that works for him, that works for me too. So like, that's kind of what I mean, is that like sometimes our human experience takes precedent over what the ethereal plan is or the soulic plan, and they're very willing to be patient with us and understand.
Oh, I love that. I've actually also been told that too by other mediums that like there's another child for me. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm 40. I could get pregnant. I don't really want to, right? Like I don't have the capacity for my business and my 2 children. So, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to whoever's out there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. So in that sense, do you feel like spirit babies have a gender? Like are they female or male, or is it just kind of, esoteric?
The way that I understand it is similar to the way that I understand guides, like our actual, like our team, a spirit team of guides, is that they don't have a gender on the other side. The best way that I can describe it is with all of the near-death experiences that I've read about and studied, that people, when they have a near-death experience, they come out of their body and they realize that they're just a ball of energy, a ball of consciousness, a ball of light. Well, that doesn't have a gender. Gender is this human construct that we put into label things and people. And so that's how we are making sense of this spirit in this human body. And so it's not that they have a gender, but they will oftentimes, like our guides, present themselves as a certain gender in order to make a connection with us. So my son, he doesn't display himself to me as a certain gender per se, but I have the felt sense that he's a boy, and a lot of mediums have told me. Whereas my daughter, as soon as I connected with her long time ago, I knew she was a girl because she was so feminine and so in my face about it. So it's kind of like however they want to connect with you about what their gender is, whether it's important to them or not. And that's what I would say, is that if you connect with a spirit baby and you can feel the gender right away, there must be significance in them telling you that. Versus if a spirit baby is like, yeah, it doesn't really matter the gender, it's probably not going to be a super significant thing, or they don't care to place importance on the gender itself.
Yeah. So if somebody is looking to get pregnant and they either talk to you or another medium or they connect with the spirit baby themselves, and I'll ask questions about that later, how can they be sure that that spirit baby is like an actual baby versus maybe it's a business or a grandson?
So I've only ever really come to understand that through my own readings.
Yeah.
And I really relied on other people to tell me. The only way that I can really, truly, clearly describe this from my experience is that when it's a baby that's hoping to be manifested in physical form, the way that I experience them is I can hear them as if they're actually talking to me. The clear audience that I have like turns all the way up, and I start to sense past lives that are significant to connect to the mother or the father. And I start to really humanize them is the best way I can describe it. Like they become very human for me. They take on an identity. They take on, yeah, they show me past lives and names, and they'll kind of give me human things to attach to. Whereas I recently did an FCT for a woman who I said, are you trying to get pregnant? And she was like, no, 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 like we're done. We have three. And I said, well, you have a baby girl coming in. And she goes, and I said, let me tune into her a little bit. And the baby kept bringing up the business that her and her husband had started. And so that's how I would know if the baby was coming in like, I'm helping you create something, or I'm the energy of a new business, or I'm the energy of something. There's almost like for a business, it comes through as like a seed that needs to be built. And so the way that we would attune the energy to that spirit baby is to ask the spirit, how would you like this to grow? How would you like this to be nurtured, this business? How would you like it to, much like a child, how would you like its identity to be in the world? Like how,
Right.
and they're very similar, starting a business and having a baby in the energetic sense, not in the human sense, but in the energetic sense. You are usually one or two people putting together this divine inspiration and bringing it into physical manifestation.
Interesting. So a little off track from the original conversation that I had planned, but in that sense, is there a spirit or spirit baby to everyone's business? Like, how does that work?
Yes, there's an energy to everyone's business.
Yeah.
I've constellated my own business before. I've constellated in a family constellation my family's business that I worked for before. And there was a
Mhm.
lot of like through line with ancestral stuff in that business. So I would say like every business definitely has an energy. To be truthful, I don't know why certain ones come through as more like spirit baby energy versus just the energy of itself. I would assume most of them do to some
Okay.
extent.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I feel like there is an energy to a business. It's just what is it and who's supporting it, what's behind it, and all that.
Yeah, and I think this is also, if I can just throw in this too, if anyone's listening, I mean, you and I are entrepreneurs, we own our own
Yeah.
businesses, right? And so, like, the journey of the entrepreneur is constantly evolving. You're constantly, I'm always humbled by my own experience
Giving
because,
birth.
right when yeah, you're always giving birth to something new. It's a very humbling experience. And so, for me, just like a child would grow through different developmental stages, you and the energy you put into your business that's going to feed that child, quote unquote, is going to keep evolving. Just like a forewarning to all entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs to be, you're supposed to evolve, you're supposed to develop, you're supposed to grow. What you start doing may not be what you end up doing 5, 10, 11, 12 years down the road. So I think that kind of helps the process for people who own businesses, at
Yeah.
least for myself.
Yeah, that's such an important message. And I know through my business, and I'm pretty sure through yours, that rings true that we're not doing the same thing we were doing 5 years ago, even.
I'm in the middle of that myself right now. I can sense that I've closed down a lot of my sessions for the rest of the year, and I'm going through a lot of replanning. I've been doing family constellation for almost 5 years now, and it's like, okay, I'm growing as a human, and now my business is going to grow and it's going to change. And sometimes I can feel very like confusing or chaotic, but like it just is what it is, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I'm excited to see where you land. But back to spirit babies, so actual physical spirit babies, pregnancy, fertility, all of that. Can spirit babies be reincarnation of past people in our family? Like, could I give birth to the spirit of my great grandfather?
Yes, and that's why it's so important to do your work to clean up your side of the
Mm.
street, because you are paving the path for the future generations, but you could be paving the path for your grandmother who's going to reincarnate as your great granddaughter. Whatever assumptions that we have about ancestral healing, throw them out the window because we will I'm constantly surprised by what spirit brings to the table in terms of how reincarnation and past lives work. Even in our own current lives, how we're moving through different ages, we're doing, in quantum healing, time and space doesn't exist. And so, what we're healing today, maybe if you're a woman who's healing using her voice and what that looks like, and using it not for judgment, but for kindness and warmth and service to others, right? Like what path you're paving now, that could be the path that your grandmother who caused the pain may need to come back into in 2 or 3 generations to experience the
Yeah.
gifts. So she may have caused the pain, but you're also the one who's transmuting and alchemizing so that when she comes back in, or if she comes back in, she gets to reap the benefits of that. And we're all, it's interesting to me with ancestral healing because I completely understand the resentment, the anger, the judgment, the blame, the shit. Like trust me, been there, done that, get it deeply. And also at the end of the day, like it really did nothing for me because it's like that quote where you touch a burning pot and you're the
Yeah.
only one that's going to get burnt. It
Yes.
just kind of was like that, And so like we take what happens in our family system so personally because our whole identity is created off of whether we belong with them or not and what
Yeah.
connection looks like or not. And we have all these things that happen inside of us as a result of what happened in our early years with our family and how they're replaying the inherited trauma. So
Right.
it's just really interesting to think about.
That is interesting. I mean, what you said about cleaning up, your trauma, your side of the street, whatever it might be, I think that's important on so many levels because not only will that help you get pregnant, right? That's a lot of what I talk about is how that's going to help your fertility. It's going to change your thoughts, your belief, your mindset, which affects your physical body. But on top of that, it's going to help with you being a mother. And I can say this as someone who has not cleaned up my whole side of the street before having children, which is okay, right? Because that's my path and my kids' path. But I've done a lot of work. I do feel like I'm an amazing mother. I'm not saying otherwise, but like it's going to help you to be a good parent once you work through your own trauma. Because once your kids enter the room, like everything's going to come at you, right? All your old trauma, anything that has ever gone in your life, you're going to basically be face to face with it. So cleaning up that before you have a baby is like really going to do a world of wonders for you.
Yeah, and I would say, just like you said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Maybe your
Right.
baby's needed to go through that experience with you in order to whatever, whatever soulic contract that there was there for you guys to do it together. But the fact that it's even being done is like really what I hope people and yourself too, just like focus on. Like you're saying,
Right.
you can acknowledge like, this is what I'm doing right now. And again, blame, shame, judgment for others, but for ourselves too. Like that doesn't do anything.
Right.
Really what's more impactful is going into the pain, going into the emotions, going into the feelings that you're having, and really understanding the story that's been created in your mind as a result of these painful things you've experienced. The intimidation factor is really high on something like that, but also I've been able to really study Dr. Gabor Mate's compassionate inquiry, which I'm doing his course on right now. And you see these people who are just so afraid of going into their childhoods and so afraid of looking at themselves and the fears that they have. And then he guides them through this 10-minute exercise. And on the other side of it, they're like, oh my God, I spent 20 years avoiding that emotion. And in 10 minutes, I've realized what my story is that I created around that. And it just gives you so much liberation. So if anything, it's a message of empowerment. Like you can be the person that you want to be. It just takes a little bit of courage and support and guidance.
Right. And a sense of freedom in a lot of ways once you let go of that grip of your past, like the stories that you've been writing for yourself. Yeah. So this kind of plays into that a little bit, but why do certain spirits choose certain families? And this is, a concept I get questions about a lot in the sense that women are like, why is it that I'm doing all the things to get pregnant and it's still a struggle for me? Whereas, quote unquote, alcoholics and drug addicts, I don't like using those terms, but I'm just quoting what other people say to me, can get pregnant easily. And like in my mind, that goes back to some sort of soul contract and a lot of factors. But I'm curious your thoughts on why certain spirits choose certain families.
No, you nailed it. There's a couple things, but I want to just tell you and the listener too is that as a human being, you are many parts of a whole: the mind, the body, and the spirit. And so when it comes to getting pregnant, what I really admire about your work is that you look at it from all angles. And I think that's
Right.
really important because we can't just look at it from one lens. of course, there's the mind, your emotional world, your stress levels, your ability to regulate your X, Y, and Z, whatever it is, emotional state, worry, like all those things, which worry tends to be one of the biggest blocks that I've been shown for spirit babies, is that when there's too much going on in the mind, there's a disconnect from the body. And what trauma does is it disconnects the mind and the body. So our work is to try to bring the body and the mind back into a healthy, synonymous, and symbiotic relationship. But then there's the body aspect, right? Like, how is your body functioning as a result of what's going on in your mind, and vice versa, right? Like, but then from the spirit perspective, there's a few things. One is soul contract, and the second one is divine timing. So sometimes the spirit baby will know that there's a better time to come in than what the parents have planned. This is what we like to call accidental pregnancies. Sometimes people get pregnant by accident. They weren't trying, or they weren't ovulating that week. And then all of a sudden they're pregnant. And it's like, well, because there was a bigger timeline that needed to start unfolding so that certain things could happen, because in the spirit world, they can see so much more than we can see. And that's not to say that there's a perfect way your life needs to go. It's that, and keep this in mind too, for anyone who ever gets intuitive readings. A good intuitive will remind you, one, never to give your power away to anything that they say. You get to decide what you put as the authority over your life. But two, is that they are giving you information based on your free will and choice at that time when you get the reading done. So the spirit baby sees a timeline playing out as a result of your free will and choice in that time. And there is that and the higher timeline that they need to come into. So I would say it's a lot of stuff, but I'll also say this too, because it feels relevant, and I opened up the field before I came on. So anything that's coming in my mind, I'm just going to say it. But there's also a component of a baby is not just coming in for mom. A baby is also coming in for a other partner, whether it's the biological parent of that child, whatever your relationship is. A baby is usually looking for the buy-in of both people to welcome the baby into the physical body and into the physical realm. And so there have been often times where women come to me and they are all in to get pregnant. And the spirit baby's like, but my dad's not ready. My dad is scared. My dad has some unhealed stuff. And I'm trying to get mom's attention to get dad's attention because dad isn't open to hearing me. And that's tricky because we don't want to become like the fixer of our partner, and we don't want to like start doing their work for them. But it is interesting to kind of take a little bit of a step back and be the example of like, I'm going to do my work and I'm going to like have these difficult conversations with my partner. And maybe you just start planting seeds with your partner, and maybe you start kind of just asking spirit or asking your higher self to work with the higher self of your partner to kind of create this opening of vulnerability. Can we have these conversations about maybe any fears you're having? Like, we don't want to use the spiritual to bypass the human experience, because the spirit is coming in for the human experience. So we have to address that.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot in my practice too, where it's like the mother really wants that baby and wants it now, but there is a disconnect with the partner or the husband or whoever it might be. And that definitely plays a role in the ability to bring another life into this world. And I get a lot also women that I'm treating who ask me questions for their husband or their partner, but their husband and their partner won't come to see me, right? So it's like, there's a lot of disconnect that can be going on there. I just want to point something out. You mentioned, timing and spirits come at their own time. And you mentioned that with accidental pregnancies, but that can also be the opposite, right? Of a woman wanting a child now and it taking 3 years for that child to come.
Absolutely. There's just the flip side, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so the time's not up to us ladies, it's up to spirit. In some sense, it's free will and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from the spiritual perspective, when you think about it, just like if you were to create a business, let's just mold it from a different perspective. You get an idea for a business, okay, and you like think about the business, and you meditate on the business, and you start to envision what the business will feel like and look like. But the business doesn't happen the moment you have the idea. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for things to fall into place. Maybe you need investors, maybe you need a physical location, maybe you need a partner, maybe like you need all these different things that just take a little bit of time to come together. And so if you can have compassion for yourself, if you're a mother, and just, when you get that deep inner knowing inside of you to have a baby, I had that 7 years ago. I was with my ex-husband and
Yeah.
we tried to get pregnant. We didn't get pregnant. And I'm so grateful that didn't happen because it wasn't meant to be. And it was never going to happen, as I understand. But that feeling at 27 was like, I really want to have a baby. And I'm 35 in a couple of months, and I'll probably be pregnant at 35. That's almost 8 years later. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you have to really trust and look at all the aspects of your life when wanting to bring a baby into the world.
Yeah, totally. And, I talk about this sometimes more so with my first child, but neither of my children were born exactly when I wanted them to.
Right.
But they
Right.
were born at exactly the right time, right? Like if I had, I got pregnant easily with my second child. It took me 2 months, but I actually wanted her to be a spring baby, right? But if she was a spring baby, she would have been born at the weeks of COVID, where in New York City, I would have had to give birth alone in a hospital, right? So it's like, thank you, Zoe. Thank you,
Yeah.
right? Like there's, people come when they want to, and it's always for the right time, even if we can't see it now.
Yeah, and I want to. They're bringing up something else too that I want to mention. I called in my spirit babies before
Yeah,
this to help me with stuff, and then they're bringing an example up for me. So like when there's like physical issues, and I know that you can speak deeply to this, but when
yeah,
there's like, let's just say that a woman goes through a loss in her first pregnancy, and then as a result of that, health issues arise.
sure.
I will never be the person to say it all happened for a reason, because that to me is bullshit.
Right.
However, what you end up learning about yourself, what you end up learning about your connection with your partner, what you end up learning about pregnancy or life or your body, it's not that it was supposed to happen for a reason. But I do think it is interesting to look at how you grow from an experience like that to prepare you for when the baby is ready to come in again. There are some people out in the world who say that spirit babies will come in and will miscarry or will become stillborn or whatever it is for a soulic reason. I'm on the fence about that. I think there's a lot more than just a spirit reason. There's a lot of physical body issues
Sure.
and things that we go through as women. But I do think that it's interesting that if you can allow yourself to grieve, go through the feelings, get support, and really look at what is transforming for you during that time, it's really interesting, I think, to look back in hindsight when you do have that beautiful baby in your
Yeah.
arms, regardless of how it comes into the world, because I know we're going to talk about that, and just be like, wow, okay, so like I'm more patient as a result of this, or like I will never take this experience for granted, and maybe I want to help other women. Like we just have to kind of teeter that line between like what is this experience that I'm having, and like where am I growing through this, and also what am I learning about myself? Does that make sense?
It does. And I think that's an important message for women who have suffered from miscarriages,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean, I've been fortunate. I've never had an experienced a miscarriage myself, but I've worked with a lot of women who have. And then there's always this feeling of like, why did it happen? Or, basically, why did it happen? Right? Why me? Why my body? Like,
Mhm.
and also the sense that something is wrong with you and your body, which is not necessarily the case. It's actually not the case at all. But this idea that, it doesn't even matter why, right? The why isn't so much important as what you get out of it.
1,000,000%. And as someone who I have endometriosis,
Mhm.
and I've always been told you're never going to have kids or it's going to take you a long time to get pregnant or whatever. There was a lot of grief with that and a lot of sadness. And then this like fire started under my ass. And I was like, I am going to prove them wrong and I'm going to have my babies one day. And in the process of that, I uncovered multiple autoimmune diseases that I've been healing from for the last 2 years. I'm about to get my results this afternoon for my Epstein-Barr to see if it's out of my body. So I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to that. But like what the point I'm saying is like it fueled me to
Right.
prove people wrong or to actually, you've told me I'm never going to have babies. I am going to have my babies and I'm going to do it in a healthy, holistic way where not only am I taking and preparing myself for this baby, I'm making a better me for the baby. And I'm me and my partner, we're creating healthier environments and bodies and situations where we are ready to bring this baby into the world. And if we thought we were ready before, we are definitely ready now. Like that's the kind of energy that I hope we can kind of exude through the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, so many women are told similar things like you, that they have endometriosis or they have PCOS or they have something, so that it's either going to be really hard for them to get pregnant or it's not going to happen at all. but they don't have anyone else telling them otherwise. And that's a big part of my message and my platform is not only can you get pregnant with things like endometriosis and PCOS, you can also heal from those things, right? But it doesn't even matter. You can get pregnant with endometriosis, you can heal from endometriosis. The point is everything is possible, and not to get stuck in this narrative that one person tells you. Because this is, I see it a lot. A doctor tells you something and you're grown up with this idea that I also was raised with, where your doctors are God and anything they say goes. And it's like simply not true. If someone ever tells you something that doesn't feel good in your gut, look somewhere else, right? Like you did. And like you said, allow that to be your fire.
Yeah, and too, like what you brought up earlier, when women go through these horrible miscarriages or they have to have a DNC for a medical reason with the baby or
Yeah.
whatever it is, I don't think it's healthy, and I'm an intuitive medium. I don't think it's healthy to go to someone like me and ask, why did this happen? The reality is it happened. So what did it create for you inside of you as a result of that experience? Because sometimes knowing why it happened, it's not helpful. It's not going to give you the feeling you want or the answer you want. The reality is it left you in an emotional state that needs care and tending to more than trying to figure out the reason why it happened. And so that's when I would say go to the people in your team, in your support system, who can help you move through this experience. And then, as we're saying, in hindsight, you may notice that you go through certain experiences that help you, support you, whatever it is. I just want to really be careful about like the spiritual bypassing piece with spirit babies, because I think that I'm very sensitive to it because it's been done to me and I don't want to do that to anyone.
Yeah.
But it is hard to hold space for the yes and. Yes, there's a lot of spirit baby stuff we can talk about, and being the human, there's a lot there too.
I mean, I struggle with this talking about miscarriage. Women DM me all the time questions about miscarriages because I do not talk publicly about it a lot, because I still haven't found a way to tell you how you can support your body without sounding like I'm blaming you, because at no point am I blaming you, right? So it is very like a tricky topic when it comes to miscarriages, which is why I'm glad we're talking about it here today also. But getting back to that with miscarriages, so when a woman has a miscarriage, early term chemical pregnancy or late term, what happens to that spirit of that child?
The baby is never harmed.
Yeah.
The spirit is never harmed. You are not broken. Like the mother is not broken. There's nothing wrong with you if the baby has a soul path. And this is the part where I get really weird. But like, again, I don't want to spiritually bypass, but the soul path, something happens physically or spiritually where the baby exits the body for some reason.
Yeah.
The spirit is never harmed. And again, I teeter this line very gently, but your spirit babies are always there to support you. Always. They're always there to guide you and support you before they come into the physical manifestation. And if we are open to looking at things from that perspective, it can feel more supportive. Again, going through a miscarriage of any kind, there's so much grief that happens with that, that it's most women don't want to hear, this conversation sometimes. And it's totally valid. I've never been through a miscarriage, unfortunately, so I can't speak to that experience. However, I can only imagine the grief, but then you should know too, the spirit does not suffer as a result of it.
That's good. I mean, I think a lot of women also do want to hear this conversation, right? Because they want the conversation, right? They want something, and there's not much out there. And I do think this conversation is supportive in a lot of ways. So the spirit is not harmed. Does that, if you didn't get pregnant again, does that spirit come back to you, or is it just all up in the air basically?
Potentially soul contracts. A lot of people have a school of thought that spirits will come in to support, through a loss of some kind of growth or evolution. And then that evolution happens. That spirit baby may not need to come back again because the soul contract happened. Check the box, the baby goes on its way, or the baby could come back again. It really is very unique and nuanced per person.
Interesting. I mean, I think the key takeaway there is that soul is doing what it's meant to do, and that soul is safe and supported and healthy, right?
Always, always. From my understanding, from my own spirit babies and from reading Walter Macachin's book Spirit Baby and doing a lot of research, loose, I guess, on spirit babies, the spirit, and actually this happened. I recently did EMDR with mushrooms, and I relived my womb experience and my birth experience, which was really traumatic. And I felt myself, and this is kind of in line with what I had been reading before. The spirit does not fully come in the baby most of the time until like right before birth. So the spirit is coming like in and out of the baby.
Hmm.
And so the soul of the spirit baby is fully in the baby at least up until the birthing experience. The birthing experience is
Okay.
when the soul finally makes it
Yeah.
fully into the body. So at least up until that point. Sometimes it might come in weeks before fully into the baby. Sometimes it might be in the birthing experience where the soul comes in. But the spirit's kind of coming in and out. And so there's not a lot of harm that you can be doing to the
Yeah.
spirit itself. And then of course, part of signing up for the human experience again is going through the rebirth of our soul. So that's why the spirit comes in right before at the latest of the birthing experience, because that is important for the soul to experience as it moves into its human experience in young
Great.
adulthood and then so on.
That's interesting because from a Chinese medicine perspective, and this actually isn't mentioning really soul per se, but the energy channels of our body do start to develop at conception, right? There's literally a channel called conception vessel that starts to develop. I mean, it's our constitutional energy or DNA that starts to develop at constitution, which isn't to say the soul needs to be involved technically with that, right? Because that's our DNA, that's our genes, that's our like cellular being.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting that the soul doesn't fully come in until childbirth, and that because their actual energy is starting to develop before childbirth, from my perspective.
And I would be curious. I can ask, but
Yeah.
I'd be curious if when these important channels are being developed in the baby, if that's when the spirit is coming in to experience that.
Maybe.
I think it's what I'm sensing is that it's very personal to the soul. How they want to come in and when they
Hmm.
want to come in and be fully in that body is very okay. So they're also showing me that it's very related to the parents and the parents' experience. If the parents are creating a warm and loving experience for the baby to be in while it's still in the womb, the baby might come in a little bit earlier. Or if there's a lot of soulic opportunity for growth to come in a little bit earlier, it could. But I think the last point that they can come in at is like right before childbirth.
Got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense
Yeah.
completely. So, kind of tying along that a little bit, does assisted fertility, such as IVF or even using medications, affect the spirit of the baby at all?
No, not at all, because the baby will honor and respect your journey of what it means to bring
Yeah.
it into the world. And if anything, they'll be supportive. And I've helped women before who've done IVF, and we could feel the spirit baby before the IVF
Right.
final completion part
Yeah.
was even done. And it's just like there's no hesitancy whatsoever. You know, it's important to remember for all spirits, there is a recognition in the spirit realm that what we're going through on earth is difficult. And it is a dense plane, especially lately, the time that we're in right now on earth, very dense,
Yeah.
very chaotic, very death and rebirth energy, right? Like we're in
Mhm.
a big death and rebirth energy on earth right now. And spirits respect that. So I've had guides before come in chatting away or spirit babies, and I'm just like, I need a little bit of boundary right now because this isn't very supportive for me. And it's like as if you wanted to communicate with someone who lived on Mars, you would have to learn their language just as much as they're learning your language. It's just about how you want to communicate with each other. It doesn't make it right or wrong. So I think that spirits are really just respectful of whatever we're going through as humans. Also, they can choose if, let's just say, you start choosing a path that the spirit was not entirely signed up for. They can
Okay.
choose to say, I'm not going to come in.
Yeah.
There have been women that I've worked with who are in their early 50s who came to me and said, I really want to get pregnant. I would do a reading and I would see babies and they would say, no, we're not coming in. That is very challenging for me as a medium and as an intuitive, because that is not what you want to tell somebody. And I actually tread extremely lightly. I'm thinking of one person in particular where spirit actually said to me, stop looking at us, the spirit babies, because it's too late for us to come in. What you need to look at is why she wants us so badly. Why does she want us so badly? Because there's a wounding in that that's more important to look at. And when we did look into it, there was a lot of clarity through that. And there was a lot of ancestral stuff that we had to look at. So again, it's so nuanced with each situation.
Yeah. That's interesting. I love that story.
It's tricky to navigate because I'm so aware of, I would never say to a woman, yep, you're not having babies. I would never.
No,
So
but
how do I reframe that into
right.
something supportive and helpful? And so channeling is interesting. People put it on quite a pedestal, and I would not, because it comes with its challenges as
Yeah.
well. Being able to see things and experience things that you're just like, oh man,
But
I'm going to have to really.
I think that's also what makes you a good channel and a good medium is that you have the family constellation therapy side of it, right? You have a therapy background, a trauma background where you're not just like blabbering everything that comes into your mind, you're framing it in a supportive way, which a lot of mediums do not do. And I mean, I have women come to me, they're like, oh, well, a medium told me this, and they're like anxious and worried. And it's like, no, like let's step back at what that actually means or looks like.
Spiritual coaches, therapists, I will say this until the day that I die, they need trauma informed therapy
Right.
knowledge just as much as they need the spiritual knowledge. Vice versa, clinical therapists should be aware of the potential spiritual or energetic things that happen within a client to understand the duality of who we are as humans. I tend to lean more to one side or the other for certain people, depending on what they vibe with. If I meet someone who's super spiritually open, I know that I can have this strong therapeutic foundation, but I can speak to the spiritual because they're going to speak the same language as me. Whereas some people may not, and I have to kind of know how to speak to them. And I think the most important thing that I've learned as a facilitator is you never leave someone at the end of a session dysregulated. You have to leave people grounded in their bodies, because otherwise what can happen is they can go into a spiritual psychosis and they start ruminating and worrying and living up in the head. You haven't integrated that in their body, and that is like the biggest responsibility I think all healers have, spiritual or clinical.
Side note, before I got in this medicine, I partially thought I wanted to be a therapist,
Mhm.
but I couldn't imagine just talking to someone and just leaving them like in that. And not to say, I mean, there's wonderful therapists out there. I'm not like
Yeah.
banging therapy. It's wonderful. For me, I needed like grounding. I needed some practices to be able to move the energy and not just talk about the energy. But yes,
Million percent.
very important message. So to stay on hard topics here,
Sorry. I tend to.
let's just talk about abortions for a moment. So, if a woman has an abortion, right, maybe she's too young, or maybe it was a forced pregnancy on her and decides to have abortion, is there a spiritual imprint?
Yes, there is, in the realm of family constellation therapy. Again, and this is coming from a bit of a trauma informed background as well, and studying Dr. Gabor Mate's work. Some women can have abortions and it doesn't have an impact on them. It doesn't affect them as much, maybe, or a miscarriage, right? Like everyone's so different. Trauma is the story that we create in our minds as a result of
Mhm.
something happening to us. It's the imprint that it leaves on us. So for some women, having an abortion and what happens that leads up to that abortion, right? Like the experience that they have, that absolutely is traumatic. It's traumatic, and leaves an imprint on a physical and energetic plane. The physical is, what are the physical repercussions of that abortion? Does it leave polyps, inflammation, scarring? Does your body feel unsafe in a doctor's office now? And now you all of a sudden have this PTSD. What are the kind of physical implications of it? But then also in the spirit, we're looking at an energetic theme of loss. And if it was an abusive situation in which you had to get an abortion, we're also looking at that piece as well. So if a woman comes to me from an ancestral perspective and says, I've tried everything to get pregnant, the first thing I want to look at is who had miscarriages, stillborns, abortions, where is their sexual trauma? Was there an abuse of masculine or even feminine power or authority? And I also want to look at the themes of loss. It's really interesting to look at clients who have Holocaust or genocide trauma in their family systems, because there's a lot entangled in those experiences. And I also want to clarify that it's not just emotional, it's epigenetic. So these are like the trauma that gets stored in our body. It gets passed down nature and nurture, generation after generation. And that nature and nurture piece is really important as well, because Dr. Gabor Mate says that ADHD and ADD, these are not actually genetic issues.
Right.
The nurturing that goes into how we parent a child and what kind of environment that creates in the home is epigenetic. But
Right.
the actual genetic piece of ADHD, it's not genetic. It's more of the environment that creates that genetic component.
Right. 100%. And I mean, he talks about this a little bit too. What's the word? It's a predominance towards something due to like your sensitive nature, essentially, right? Like, which is genetics too, but right, or your spirit, I mean, but being more sensitive to different behaviors or to different environments, essentially.
Yeah, and like even people say that for endometriosis, it's genetic, right? But me and my grandmother on my maternal side are the only two women in my entire lineage, and I'm the oldest of five kids with four girls and one boy. And my fertile Myrtle had five kids. My grandmother was one of the first women in Pasadena to do IVF assisted
Oh, wow.
and like IUIs kind of
Yeah.
assisted pregnancy. She had to have a hysterectomy at 34, 35. She had endometriosis, but no one else has it except me and her. And when
Yeah.
I went into looking at the similarities in our childhoods and the similarities in us, I was like, oh my god, my grand, I'm literally reliving parts of my grandmother's experience. So how do we quantify if it's genetic or not if me and her are the only ones documented that have it, right? So
Right.
it's just really interesting to think about.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on how you look at the term genetic, right? Like I have a lot of women in my practice who have endometriosis where no one in their family had endometriosis. 99% of the time still working on the constitutional energy channels where our DNA or epigenetics and our cellular being come from because it is something that was passed down. It wasn't a quote unquote endometriosis gene, but it is something that's throwing your energy out of balance on a very constitutional level.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. So give me a second while I phrase my question. So it's always been my belief and my understanding and like what feels true to me, which doesn't mean you have to agree with me. I'm just stating that right off the bat. But that if a woman has that deep rooted feeling like you got when you were 27 that she wants to have a baby, that there is a way for her to have a child, that there is a spirit out there and that there is a way for her to connect in the physical realm with that spirit. Do you agree or disagree, or what does that bring up for you?
Agree 1,000,000%. I learned this in reading Walter Macachin's book Spirit Babies.
Mm.
He alluded to the idea that if the physical body would not be able to handle a pregnancy for whatever reason, that adoption or fostering, there's so many different options for women to become mothers. And he also mentioned something interesting as well, which is kind of on the flip side of your question, that if let's just say a couple has two kids and that was the sole contract was to have two kids, but all of a sudden the couple decides they really want to have another one, and it's this like deep yearning and authentic genuine desire to have another child. You can actually ask for a spirit baby that's in your highest and best good to come in, and however it's meant to, fostering, adoption, or physical pregnancy or surrogacy or whatever it is, because his idea, and he's long since passed, but his idea when he wrote the book and his channeling was, and I've heard this many times as well, there's like a waiting list to get to Earth because
I love
transformation is happening so deeply and so quickly right now that there are like babies that are like waiting to come back so badly. And like Earth is like the hot club to be in right now. I'm like, literally, why you should choose anywhere else but here right now. But from a soul perspective, they love it because there's so much going on, and it's really an interesting time to be on Earth right now. And even a very, even though it feels very heavy, there is a lot of transformation that's happening for people, a lot of awakening that's happening. So you can always request that if it's in your highest and best good and the highest and best good of your partner and the rest of your family for another baby to come in, you can absolutely call in another one. It's not like black and white at all.
Awesome. And when you say request, just to kind of like clear that up a little bit, who are we requesting from?
You know, to each their own. The way that I would personally do it is I would sit in meditation. Lisa Beachy, Beachy on YouTube. She
Mhm.
has tons of free meditations. I've been doing her meditations for like 5 years. There are meditations for speaking with your guides, speaking with your angels, communicating with, you can kind of use her meditations and get into a place where you can receive or feel and like request spiritually. Like, you can ask questions, your guides will speak to you. Like everyone can do this stuff. It's not just like, it's a muscle. I do leg day in my intuition all the time. Like every day is leg day for me. But some people just, they have to get into the swing of it. So, yeah, you can request like in your heart through intention, through meditation. You can also write a letter to a spirit baby and set the intention that you hope that it meets them. But again, it has to be for everyone's highest and best good. So, everybody has to benefit from the situation.
Yes, that is an important point. And I think that both of those are important points. I think a lot of times we believe that you need to be a medium or a psychic to connect with the other realm when it simply is not true, right? You can just sit there in meditation and connect with them, even if you don't hear anything in return, right? That's not really the point of it. The point is the actual energetic connection and like you asking for what you want and feeling that energy.
And you're also predisposed, every human being is predisposed to having one clear, and I'll list them all out, but like one
Mhm.
piece of your intuition being stronger than the other. So mine has always been clear audience. So like I
Yeah.
can hear spirits really well, but like I can also feel them. But some people, they can see them really well and they can feel that. Like there's so many different ways that you can connect with spirit that aren't somebody saying, this is what's going to happen. You maybe feel their presence or you see what they look like, or you can hear them or smell them or just intuit them. Like who knows? You have to leave it up to what muscles are strongest for you.
And mine has always been feeling, but like, I mean, and as much as I love to speak to spirits or see spirits, what I do actually benefits me the most is the feeling. So it's, you're given what's going to work for you and what's best for you. And you can
Well,
build the muscles on the other ones.
1,000,000%. And also as somebody who uses all of mine, except the smelling one's kind of not very strong, there is nothing to me more meaningful than feeling a spirit with you. Hearing it's great, seeing it's great, but to me, when I can sense, when I'm alone in a room and I can sense my guide standing there, I'm just like, oh, I'm like moved to tears. Like that feeling, but I could never do that for myself until I dealt with my trauma. And
Yeah.
then as soon as I dealt with my inner world, then my sense of feeling became a lot stronger.
Yeah. I mean, trauma blocks so much in our bodies, our minds, and our lives. And I think, yes. So to close out the conversation, and thank you so much. I've really loved this conversation. I love that we've been able to dive into some hard topics openly, and hopefully that's been really supportive to a lot of women listening. If women, if they've been struggling to get pregnant, or maybe they think they want to start getting pregnant, is there benefit in reaching out to someone like you to connect with spirit babies, or what do you recommend?
Well, first and foremost, don't place your power in people outside of you because your baby wants to connect with you. You're the one that they want to come into. They are the one that they want to connect with. Your connection with them trumps all other connections that you'll make with the baby. So buy Spirit Babies, the book by Walter Macachin. You can get it on Kindle, audiobook. You can get it on Amazon. That is the first place I recommend all women start. I loved listening to it on Audible because he has meditations. So he kind of like guides you through them. That's my favorite way to experience the book. But again, pick up the book. And then if you have lingering questions, again, I would go to a meditation of some kind. I just launched 40 meditations on Insight Timer, and one of them is Connect with Future Generations. So you can connect with your spirit baby through that meditation. It's
Yeah.
all completely free. Insight Timer is free. I created them to be free resources for people. And then for the month of July, they were all geared towards mothers. So parenting with presence, healing for mothers after loss. Like there's like 12 different meditations for mothers and parents on the My Insight Timer profile. And then if you still have questions and you're still not getting clarity, unfortunately, I just closed down all of my readings.
Okay.
Again, like I mentioned, my career is really shifting right
Yeah.
now, but there are two people that I highly recommend for getting readings when it comes to spirit babies. And one of them is a woman I see. Her name is Miki Jacobs, Miki Jacobs. You just go to mikijacobs.com and you can book a reading with her and you can set the intention to connect with a spirit baby. She's done my spirit babies. It was amazing. I trust her like explicitly. The other person is a woman named Sarah Noel. Sarah Noel, I think. Or yeah, she is like the spirit baby like queen in the spiritual world. I feel like everyone goes to her.
It's the
And
spirit
you know
mom.
what? And then I'm gonna drop another one too. Is sorry, I know someone else. Actually, someone I know personally. Her name is Christine McGlinchey. She's
Okay.
probably her and Miki Jacobs are probably the two people, but she does free spirit baby readings every month. So she'll
Amazing.
like do a live group, and you can go to Christine, and she'll help you with that stuff.
Amazing. I just want to reiterate a sentence that you went into, but bypassed a little bit. So I want to reiterate, don't put your power in someone else, right? the healing power, it's always in you. It is not in someone else. No matter who you go to, if they call themselves a healer or not a healer, you are always your own healer, and they're just there to guide and support you. So thank you again, Kat. This has been honestly one of my favorite conversations, as is our other one that we had a couple of months ago. And definitely check out the other podcast episode with Kat on it. Maybe I'll link it in the show notes or something, but it's on family constellation therapy and family patterns and trauma. And so it's another amazing conversation. But thank you again, Kat. Oh, and lastly, where can people find you if they just want to connect you or follow your work?
Yeah, I'm officially off Instagram. So I'm only on TikTok right now, and it's just Heal with Kat Pod. And then every Tuesday I put out a new podcast episode. It's called the Heal with Kat Podcast. It's on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. That's where I'm doing a lot of my community stuff. And then my website, katdaou.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to Their Chicos. I hope today's episode helped you see the connection between your emotions and physical health a little more clearly. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who could benefit from this conversation. And remember, true healing starts from within. Let's keep exploring that journey together. See you next time.